Good morning, Year 9 GCSE class. I hope you're safe and well and enjoying lockdown as much as you possibly can. For today's lesson, a humble jelly baby is going to be used to help you to try and understand how your body moves through different planes and axes when you're playing sport. Now, according to examiner reports, this topic freaks out students when they're doing their exam, and most questions are simply left unanswered, which is absolutely crazy because in my opinion this topic is one of the easiest topics in the whole GCSE PE course. All you have to be able to do is remember a simple gymnastics routine that I'm going to ask you to practice in your garden at home while we're on lockdown, and to remember an accompanying mnemonic that goes along with that gymnastics routine. By the end of this lesson, I am hoping that you're going to all understand how this red jelly baby, when performing a forward roll or a somersault, is moving on a sagittal plane around a frontal axis. And I'm hoping that you're going to be able to understand how this blue jelly baby, now it's not actually blue, is it? Because you can't get blue jelly babies, so I'm replacing blue with black. I'm hoping that by the end of this you're going to understand how my blue jelly baby, when doing a cartwheel, is moving on a frontal plane around a sagittal axis. And I'm hoping lastly that you're going to understand how my green jelly baby, when he's doing a rotating, doing a spin, a 360-degree spin, is moving on a transverse plane around a vertical axis. So how am I going to get you to that stage? Well, let's go to our learning objective, or let's go to what we're doing today. It's planes and axes of movement. And in red is going to be simply as we always do. It's the facts. It's just describing and explaining the facts, what. And in blue, for the higher marks, we're going to apply it to sport. Actually, there aren't any green marks available today. There is no real critical evaluation of this topic. So it's just the red and the blue that we have to know. Okay, so first thing, let's go to our gymnastics routine. We're going to practice in our garden a forward roll into a cartwheel into a 360-degree spin. We're going to practice it over and over again so that when you sit down in your exam hall, that gymnastics routine will become second nature. You're going to remember the time you did lockdown and you practiced over and over again, forward roll into a cartwheel into a 360-degree spin. And you're going to remember a mnemonic that goes along with it. Okay, now we've tried so many different mnemonics over the years teaching GCSE PE, but this is a mnemonic that the kids seem to remember better than any other. The mnemonic is: some foreign friends sneak in through vans. Some foreign friends sneak in through vans. So, S goes along with F, the F goes with the S, and the T goes with the V. I've put in, but that's kind of inert. Okay? Alright, so let's move on. So what is a plane? Well, a plane is kind of an imaginary flat surface that separates the body. An axis is an imaginary straight line that separates the body. It kind of intersects your centre of gravity. So let's go to my red jelly baby to start with, who is moving on a sagittal plane. So you can see from this sagittal plane that the body is separated from left to right. Let's go to my blue jelly baby, who's working on a frontal plane. You can see from the frontal plane that the body is separated from front to back. And then my transverse plane is an imaginary flat surface that separates the top half of the body from the lower half of the body. So, if I've got a plane of glass, and this isn't, let's go to the first one. Let's go to my let's go to my sagittal plane. So we have to imagine that there's a plane of glass that's coming this way. Okay, so any movement that doesn't break that plane of glass is absolutely fine. So flexion and extension, if I'm running or somersaulting or forward rolling, then I'm not going to break that plane of glass. So flexion and extension are the movements possible along that sagittal plane. Let's go to my blue jelly baby, frontal plane. So my frontal plane is a plane of glass that's separating here. So any form of abduction and adduction is not going to break that plane of glass. So that's fine. So abduction and adduction are possible along a frontal plane. But if I start to flex and extend, it's going to break the glass. So it's not about flexion and flexion and extension. And it's not about rotation, because they will break the plane of glass. A frontal plane is just for abduction and adduction. And lastly, let's go to my transverse plane. My transverse plane is here. So if I rotate or if I spin, I'm fine. My plane of glass is staying intact. But if I start to flex or extend, or if I start to abduct and adduct, I'm going to break that plane of glass. So if I'm doing a forward roll, I'm in a sagittal plane, that's absolutely fine. So for your exam, if it asks you a type of movement along a sagittal plane, then it's just simply a forward roll or running. It's flexion and extension. If in your exam it asks you for a type of movement along a frontal plane, then the simple answer is it's a cartwheel. It's abduction and adducting, or a bowling in cricket. And transverse plane in your exam, if it asks you for a movement, any form of spin or turning. So for example, a discus thrower would be along a transverse plane. Now, if you're lucky, it's going to ask you for a second mark on that sporting example. It won't just ask you for the plane, but it will ask you for the axis around which that movement occurs. And that's brilliant, because if we just remember our mnemonic, some foreign, so we've got sagittal plane. Now if you remember my jelly baby, I'm going to come down here again. If you remember my jelly baby, at the moment, that straight line that intersects the centre of gravity, I've put through from side to side. So it allows me to move around a frontal axis. Okay, so sagittal plane goes with the frontal axis in a forward roll. Secondly, if on your exam paper it's going to ask you around what axis is that cartwheel, you're just going to remember my mnemonic. Not some foreign, but friend sneak. So I'm going to go frontal plane. So this is a sagittal axis. Any form of abduction and adduction, as we experience in a cartwheel, is a sagittal axis. Lovely. And then lastly, let's go to my green jelly baby. If on your exam paper you're asked around what axis do you turn when you're working on a transverse plane, the answer would simply be it's TV, through vans. So the answer would be transverse plane, vertical axis. And that is a spinning movement. Now when we're playing sport, we're constantly moving between planes and axes of movement. But if you can simply remember that mnemonic along with our gymnastics routine, then we're made. So just to recap, the mnemonic: some foreign, friends sneak in through vans, and we put that alongside a forward roll into a cartwheel, into a 360-degree spin. You're absolutely laughing. Simple marks on your exam paper, I promise you. So now what I'd like you to do is go into your garden, in 5 minutes' time and practice the routine. I'm going to put this presentation on to show my homework again. The first thing I'd like you to do is to copy it into your blue books. I'll put it as a photo attachment on Show My Homework as well. So I think this is now lesson 23 that I'd like you to put onto your mobile phones, onto your photo album on mobile phones, so that if you're in the car or on a bus and there's some wasted time, I know you won't have your blue books with you, but you've always got your mobile phones with you, you can just flick through and you can refresh your mind about planes and axes of movement. I hope that's okay, and I hope you're all well. Please stay safe, keep isolated.